Hi everyone, this is Ginger from stampingthecape.com. Thank you for watching my video. Today's project is this little, it's called a Kirigami box. It's a form of origami, and it opens like this. It's about almost 3 by 3 size to fit a nice little gift in there. And I want to thank Sharon Chang from Sharing Creativity and Company for coming up with this size template. There is another one on the Split Coast Stamper site that's a little bit different. It's a little bit larger, made differently, but she was able to make this out of one piece of 8 1/4 by 11 cardstock. On my blog, I will provide you with this color-coded template, and I tweaked it a little bit. And what I'm going to do is I've started my piece, my cardstock base, and I've color-coded it in the hopes that I can show you exactly what you need to do, what each of those colors mean. So let's get started. So we're starting with an 8 1/4 by 11-inch piece of cardstock, and you're going to score it on the landscape side, which is with the short end up here. If you're using the Simply Scored tool, you would put it in this way, and then you would score it at 2 3/4, which is here, and that's going to be a light blue dotted line on your template. So you're going to score all the way down here, and then you're going to score at 5 1/2 on this line. Same thing, it would be a light blue line. Then you're going to turn it one turn horizontally or landscape wise, and your first score over here is going to be 1 3/8, which you would score all the way down. Then your next score, which these are all going to be blue dotted lines, is at 4 1/8, which you would score all the way down. The next score line is 6 7/8, which you would score all the way down. And then your final score over here is 9 5/8, which you'd score again all the way down. Now you see these red score lines. You're actually going to do some scoring here as well before you cut. The red lines will mean cutting lines, but you're going to want to score on this end at 2 1/4, and you're just going to score it to this first horizontal score line. And then the same thing on this end at 8 3/4. You're going to want to score again from the top to this very first score line, spin it around all the way to the other side, and do the same thing again at 2 1/4 down to this very first horizontal score line, and at 8 3/4 score it down to this very first horizontal line. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do some trimming and cutting. So on your template, you'll see I've put in a red line this way and this way on all 4 corners. So what we're going to do is we're going to cut up this red line. And actually, first what I might do is fold on the actual score lines. I think it makes it a little easier. So before we go any further, which I actually have done, I would fold all your basic score lines, everything other than these. So you're going to fold your ends, your middle, your ends, middle ends, and use your bone folder to get a nice crisp fold on these, because you're going to want it. You're going to want it to be nice and crisp. And line up your 2 edges here so that you make sure your box is going to be straight. Okay, I did it that way and that way. Okay, so as I said, we're going to cut on this red line, and you're going to fold back this piece, and then you're going to cut up this red line. Let me move my scoreboard out of the way here. And then you're going to flip this piece back, and you're going to cut on this red line. Okay, and where I have the green little angles, we're going to cut those off. This helps the box to just close a little easier. And they don't have to be exact, it's just we're trying to trim the edges off on there. So we're going to go to the next side, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to cut up this red score line. And then we're going to fold this back. Get it out of the way. And then we're going to cut along this red line. And you're actually cutting along the score lines that you made previously. And we'll fold this back. And we'll we'll cut along here. So I'm saying red line, that's the way it is on the template. But like I said, these are actually your score lines you're cutting along. And again, we're going to trim off these little edges. There we go. Okay. And we're going to repeat the same thing on this side. You've got these little flaps here, cut off at the edge, these little flaps here, cut off at the edge, these little flaps here, cut off at the edge, and same thing here. All right, so now we're going to put together first our box. That's going to be these middle sections, and you can use a variety of different adhesives, whatever you feel comfortable with. For doing something like this, I actually feel comfortable using the multi-purpose liquid glue because it gives you a few minutes to adjust and straighten and whatnot, so that you don't have to like put down the tape and then pull it off and you're tearing your cardstock. So I'm going to put a little Tombow here. And actually what I might do is put a pencil mark where the Tombow, should not go beyond, so that I don't glue any further. So I'm going to just put a little pencil mark there lightly, and I'll do the same on the other side, just so I don't have a gluing accident. Okay. All right. And Tombow is a pretty fast and strong adhesive. If you don't feel comfortable taking it out from the bottle itself, you can put a little dollop on a piece of scrap paper and then use toothpicks to apply it. I often do that with some of my stamping ladies. They tend to sometimes get a little heavy when it comes to the white glue, and it helps them from getting too much glue. It helps them from getting too much glue all over everything. So let's see. Okay. All right. So now if you wanted, you can actually start to put on your decorative pieces. We're going to be using 2 pieces of, in this particular box, I've got 2 pieces of 1 3/8 by 8 1/4 Whisper White, and then I have 2 pieces of 1 1/4 by 8 1/4 Designer Series paper, and then I have 2 square pieces of cardstock. That's 2 3/4 by 2 3/4, and then again 2 pieces of Designer Series paper. That's 2 5/8 by 2 5/8. And on this particular box, I'm going to do a belly band. So I've cut a piece. Let's see, it was 1.5 inches by the full 12 inches of the DSP. So that should fit around our box. So I'm going to do my background piece first. And like I said, using the Tombow liquid glue allows you to give you some wiggle room with this, and you can move it around and get it lined up where you want it to be. Okay. And then I'm going to do my Designer Series paper. On this one I'm using the polka dots, on the other one I used this side. I thought we could make one that's maybe a little more masculine. And I'm using the white on white, I think by putting the extra piece of backing cardstock. I mean, on this one I used the Night of Navy, but I think it makes your box a little bit better, a little bit stronger. I'm using just a regular Whisper White. You could use the thick Whisper White, which maybe not need the extra background, but I don't know, I like the look of it, so that's what I decided to do. So let's put my background. And my designer series paper. Okay, so now I've got those two sides. Now we're going to work on these side pieces. Let's see. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to build, whoops. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start to build my sides, because these two pieces will wrap around all of the sides. So you want to bring the sides up and make sure they're lined up with the very edge. Otherwise the box won't close. And this is why we cut off those little edges, because it makes it a little bit easier for your box to close up. And again, this is one of the reasons I like the Tombow glue, because you might have to play with it a little bit to get it actually in position. So you're going to put the glue or adhesive on the flap here, and then on the flap here. And whoop, don't get it on the designer paper. Okay, well, that worked pretty good. And if it doesn't, it gives you an opportunity to squeeze those sides in a little bit tighter. And just make sure your glue's down. You're going to flip your flaps again, put your adhesive on this back side. And attach them here, here. Flip the box up. Make sure those edges are nice and even. And just, sorry, I keep hitting my head on the camera. Okay, so there's your box base, and you've got your two ends done. So now you can see when this box is made, it always leaves like a little tiny gap in there, and that kind of bothered me a little bit. So when I did this box, I kind of overlapped a little bit just so that it closes it up once you have it put together. And that's what we're going to do here. So we're going to take our two pieces of cardstock, and I'm going to score. I'm going to score these at the same place where we scored on our portrait side at 2 3/4 and 5 1/2. To the other piece, 2 3/4 and 5 1/2. Okay, so that's all we'll need for that. And just something I learned, and I've been stamping for a long time, but I've learned this fairly recently. I always used to think that you folded going towards the crease in the cardstock, but I learned that sometimes your cardstock will crack. So it's recommended actually to go in the opposite direction towards where that bulge is, where the score line goes out. and you have a less of a tendency to have cracking on the edges of your cardstock, and that seems to have proven actually true. So you want to make sure these are lined up on the edges so that they're straight. And I'm using my bone folder to reinforce that score line. Square them up. Okay. All right, so now we're going to attach our designer series paper strips. And again, I'm using the Tombow. It does give you a little leeway. You can use snail, fast fuse, whatever you choose. You want to make sure, especially making a box, I would probably go with fast fuse or the tear and tape, if not the Tombow, because you want to make sure your box doesn't fall apart. You want to keep these seams together. Snail tends to be okay for cards, but for that extra little bit of strength, I'd go with something else. All right, so that one. And you really, like I said, on the Tombow liquid glue, you really don't need a whole lot for it to really stick. Obviously you want to get some down there, but it doesn't have to be a big blob to do the job. Well, that's a good tagline. Where's my other? There it is. Okay. We're doing this right to the edge. And I'm trying to get that as centered as possible. And like I said, the liquid glue, Tombow liquid glue, gives you an opportunity to kind of scooch it a little bit before it really sets. Okay, so we're back. I had a little technical problem there. Ran out of memory on my phone. So now that we have our two pieces, we're going to attach them to the box. And what I was talking about earlier was this. I had to redo the box to do this. And as you can see, it's got a major gap in there for some reason. It always has some type of gap, and this one was actually quite large. But you can attach these pieces so that it fills in that gap, and it won't be any worse for wear. So I've, again, folded on those score lines that we previously had scored. I'm just going to apply adhesive and attach the two sides. And I'm going to push it in just a little bit so it's overlapping on this gap end, and then I will do the same on the other side. I just want to make sure it's straight. And I'm just doing this quickly just to try to save some time. Okay, so now I'm going to push this one towards that center. And like I said, using that liquid glue, the Tombow liquid glue, allows you to wiggle it back and forth a little bit, gives you some leeway to get it done. So now you've pretty much filled in that gap, so you don't have to worry about it anymore. Okay, so for this one, I created this belly band using a 1.5 by 12-inch piece of, another piece of this designer series paper. I said I felt a little guilty with this paper. It looks like Yankee stripes, and being a Red Sox fan, that's not too good a thing, but anyway. So what I usually do when I do a belly band is I try to get it sort of, figure out, eyeball where the center is, and then I can crease the bottom ends with my fingers, so making sort of like a score line there. And then this is just going to overlap just a snitch. And when doing a belly band, you don't want it to be too tight that you can't get it on and off easily. So I'll bring it up, and again, I'll score with my fingers, but I want to make sure there's a little slide room, and that seems to be pretty good. So I'm going to reinforce these folds, and then I'm just going to use some fast fuse on this to attach the two ends. We'll put it back on just so I can get it square. And again, you can use whatever, the liquid glue would work fine for this if you wanted to. So there's your belly band, and that should slide off and on pretty easily. When you're doing cards, if you do card packs or a card that has a belly band, that's a little, you can do that a little tighter because you can bend the card, but something like this you can't bend. So what I did for this, to finish this off, is I cut a scallop circle using the new circles dies, and this one is, let's see, I used the 2.5 inch. I measured this. This is the 2.5 inch scallop circle from that set. The silver, I used the silver foil, which is about 2 3/8, and then this one plain circle is a 2 1/8. And then I just took some of the silver twine. I stuck some let's see if I can. I stuck some dimensionals in the back and just kind of randomly wrapped it around and stuck it on, so to finish it off. But you can do whatever you want, whatever you have available. Makes a cute topper. And so there you go. So we've got this one, and then this one, as I said, with the bow builder. And again, I appreciate your patience for having run out of memory. And if you have any questions, please feel free to contact me. Again, the template will be on my blog post, stampingthecape.com. And thanks very much. Bye-bye.